the ones that are using non-dual spiritual components, I see on and on messages about psychotherapy and non-duality, or psychotherapy. Some of them are even psychotherapy and Dzogchen, and it's aimed in a particular direction, which is how to incorporate Dzogchen or Mahamudra or something like that into specific therapeutic situations. And I'm fine with that. We're essentially just saying, why not the opposite? Why not take psychotherapeutic stuff and incorporate it into the spiritual stuff? And if one of the problems with psychotherapy, which many of you have had some experience with, and I think probably most of you would find in some degree it was helpful. The difficulty is that if an individual in a given spiritual tradition is starting to have emotional problems, at least in many cases, it's interpreted as if that person is somehow not doing the practice strong enough. That if you were really doing it well, you wouldn't be having these emotional problems. So you come to the teacher with them and you say, I'm this, I'm this, I'm that, and they'll often say, increase your efforts, which is what's making it bad, is the problem. So you take, for example, a lot of therapeutic problems are caused because people will disown, let's say anger, having trouble with anger, they disown anger, project it out of their system, see it on other people, and then they sit down in meditation and maybe they're doing witnessing or vipassana or bare attention or something. And as anger comes up, they're kind of, nete, not me, that's not me, that's not I. And so they dissociate that anger. But that's already the problem. They've already dissociated and disowned anger and trying to get rid of it. So now here it comes again, and they're just pushing it away again. So they're sitting there going, anger, anger, anger. In other words, dissociate, 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 psychoticize, psychoticize, psychoticize. And we're going like, let's try to back off on that a bit. It's one of the really, really, really important things that we've learned about developmental approaches, evolution in humans, is that as you move through these general stages, the actual sort of core background will remain. So if you look at something like concrete operational thinking, and then formal operational thinking, and then pluralistic thinking, all of those as basic rungs, and we talk ladder, climber, rung. If we look at our ladder, climber, view, if we look at the ladder and its rungs, so if we look at concrete operational, formal operational, pluralistic, those are supposed to stay. Formal operational actually operates on concrete operational, and pluralistic operates on formal. So you want these to stay in place as you develop up them. But each time you're at a specific one of these basic rungs, like concrete operational, you'll develop a view of the world from that rung. Just like if you're on a real ladder and you're climbing it, and you climb up to rung 4, you're going to see the world from rung 4. You're not going to see it from rung 1. You're not going to see it from rung 2. You're not going to see it from rung 3. So those views from rung 1, 2, and 3, they're gone. You have a view from rung 4 in the ladder. But all of those earlier rungs, 1, 2, 3, they're still there. They're holding the ladder up. You can even look at those as your chakras. Your first 3 chakras stay, but you're viewing it through your 4th. So how you actually balance that is a genuine issue. And so you want to be able to strengthen your basic rungs, but let go of your narrow views as you move from rung to rung to rung. And so concrete operational, formal operational, pluralistic, those stay in existence. Those are still functioning. You can still operate concretely on the world. You can still think abstractly about ideas. You can still pluralistically subject those to scrutiny. But you can't take a view from a lower rung and exclusively see the world from that. If you wanted to go down to chakra 2, sexuality, you still, in your chakra 5, you still have access to second rung. You can still feel your sexuality. You still have sexual desires and sexual needs and its life vitality and so on. But you can't see the world exclusively from that rung if you're at 5. You'd have to let go of 5 and lose all rationality. You'd have to let go of 4 and lose all concrete thinking. You'd have to let go of 3 and lose all capacity for thinking whatsoever. And you'd have to go down to second chakra and just be an impulsive, slobbering, give me sex. That's only going to happen with severe brain damage. So you want to be able to keep, it's a little tricky, but it's very real. We have the ladder and its rungs, concrete operational, formal operational, sexual, pluralistic, and so on. And then you have the views that come as you grow and develop and step up on each of these levels and see the world only from those views. As you step up to the next higher level, you lose that view. You're on the next rung. You're not looking at the world from the same rung. The rung itself is still there. So you have rung needs that stay. Buddhas need to eat. Buddhists can have sex. Buddhists can have intentionality. But they're no longer identified with just that. They can't just see the world through intentionality or just see the world through sex or anything like that. So we have to understand this generalized developmental process that's going on. And what we learn when we look at these 2 axes of development, one waking up and one growing up, is that bizarrely, until 10 years ago, these were never, ever, ever brought together. All the meditative systems use states of consciousness. All modern psychological systems use structures of consciousness. That's why most modern developmental models don't have enlightenment and awakening and all of that kind of stuff. A few have postulated them, but the contemplative traditions, East and West, have nothing but these states of consciousness. So they have gross, subtle, causal, turiya, turiyatita, or non-dual unity, and they specialize in those. You're not going to see those unless you take up meditation. And so very few people in the West, that modern Western developmental models were created by studying, very few of them were going through meditative states. And so they just looked at structures. And every major structure is given. Individuals that grow will grow through those structures. They won't grow through states. You have to take that up as an intentional, separate action and start meditating and start practicing and learn to get your wakefulness to move through gross and subtle and causal and turiya and turiyatita states. When you do that, you're enlightened. You are one with all emptiness and form. Now, what form? That depends on how much you grew up. If you grew, using Gebser's terms for these levels or structures, archaic, magic, mythic, rational, pluralistic, integral. If you are at the mythic level of development and you go all through state development and get enlightenment, union of emptiness and form, you are indeed one with your world. But that world includes form only up to mythic. You have not developed rational, pluralistic, integral, and super integral forms. So you're not going to really be one with everything, because you have 4 levels over your head that you can't even see. So you're not going to be one with those. So that's why it's so important to combine structures and states, growing up and waking up. This is the first time in history these two incredibly important axes of development have come together. And if you are pursuing any sort of waking up, evolutionary potential, anything like that at all, you're going to want to take both of these into account. This is the new bar for potential. This is the new capacity that we have uncovered in humans. And this is what we are here to talk about, an initial version of just that. Structures and waking up, structures and growing up, states and waking up, and shadow and cleaning up. And this appears to be the leading edge of your possibility for growth. Anything less than that is leaving out an important dimension of your own being. And that dimension you leave out won't just go away. It'll blindside you. And so we want to be careful when we choose our overall paths. And simply one of the fine ideas about an integral and a fourth turning is that we're saying, fantastic, let's put together just the minimum number of items that we know that terrifically affect your growth and development. And let's give you practices and exercises covering all of them. So you don't have to do all of them. As Mike Murphy and I used to say in developing integral transformative practice, we don't want to give people metaphysical hernias. So, you don't have to line up all 28 and kill yourself, but you want to take, 2 or 3 from states and maybe 2 or 3 from structures where it's really hurting you not being developed there, and work on those. And so that's what the maps that we're trying to create with help from you is helping us give an initial stance at this type of process. And of course, we are getting closer and closer and closer to new definitions of the human being altogether. Certainly transhuman notions, even just soft, squishy carbon humans waking up and growing up are central. You can do that right now. And so any way that we can do to help that, that's what we want to try to do. Any questions or suggestions, problems you see with it, anything like that, we would love to hear from it. It's arguably the single most important item on the books for human beings at today's stage of history and evolution. We can go farther than this, broken. And the farther we go broken, the more broken the results we get. And we don't need to break much right now to cause calamity. So this is a moral imperative for us. The evidence for both of these axes, structures and states, is overwhelming. I've mentioned that I did a book called Integral Psychology that included charts in the back that showed about 60 structure models. And what was so astonishing is that they are all in general agreement. And then I showed about 30 models of state development, meditative development. And again, what was so striking is that in general terms, they are all so essentially similar. So, in a sense, we don't have to fight that fight. We could just say, okay, let's make general assumptions that all of these approaches have some component of the truth. So, instead of the question, which approach is right and which approach is wrong, the question becomes, what's the structure of the universe that allows both of these to have something important to say? That's a very different question. And so we are, of course, pulling for those more inclusive answers. And so we hope you will help us with that.